Good morning, everybody. Welcome to The Sweat. I'm your host, Jesse Cofield, riding solo while my co-host Emerson Latzia is in Florida for the week. Must be nice. So no Emerson, but lots of great content coming your way on the show. We're going to check in with NFL news, free agency, a mere 2 weeks away. We're going to break down tonight's 6-game NBA slate, and of course, it's March. You know we're talking college basketball, but we're getting the party started in the NHL with NHL.com's Fantasy on Ice podcast host Pete Jensen, plus RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Scholl's 9-game slate this evening, fellas. Need your best DFS plays. So, which center are you going to be paying up for this evening, Pete?
I'm going to go with Nazem Kadri for the Colorado Avalanche. I don't like the lack of consistency from the New York Islanders. I know that Sorokin has been great, but if this is Varlamov especially going tonight against the Avalanche either way have the overpowering matchup for sure. So I would spend up for Kadri. He's only had 3 different stretches this season of multiple games without a point, so good chance he bounces back from a rare goose egg the other day. And he ranks 6th in NHL points per game, minimum 20 games. With great split stats against the Eastern Conference. So give me Kadri all day and probably a stack from the Avalanche in this matchup against the Isles.
All right, Paul, what do we think? Who are you paying up for at center?
You know what? You can go all the way to the top and blow your brains out on McKinnon, McDavid, and Aho. They all have pretty nice one-sided matchups, but I'm going to go a little bit lower in the center mix and find a couple of guys that are almost as hot as those guys, but maybe $2,000 or $3,000 cheaper. So Patrice Bergeron makes the grade, $6,400, centering one of the top lines in hockey still, although they've got a different look on one of the wings with DeBrusk filling in instead of Pasternak. So it hasn't slowed down Bergeron, and they looked like they were at practice last night in Los Angeles, rolling up a 7, and I think they could do the same thing in Anaheim tonight. And then Steven Stamkos against the Ottawa Senators. The Sens are really struggling offensively, and I think it's affected their overall game. Meanwhile, the Bolts are on another roll, and they're averaging over 4 goals a game in their last 5 games. So I think Stammer is in for a big night and only cost $6,300 here.
All right, AJ, who do you want to pay up for at center?
Pete's on the right team, but the wrong center. And Paul is, for whatever reason, fading him. I'm going to go all the way to the top, $9K for Nathan McKinnon here. He's on a 7-game point streak that includes half a dozen goals. Look, it's actually not the best matchup, as Pete kind of alluded to here. The Isles have allowed 2.59 goals per game since we got into calendar year 2022. And Sorokin has been really good, but he's dead right. If for some reason Varlamov gets to start, then you absolutely should heavily stack. I do think even with, the fact that Edmonton has a better matchup against the Flyers, I still think you pay up that little bit extra, get McKinnon. He's just been too good and too goal heavy lately to avoid him.
All right. AJ's paying all the way up at center. How about the best winger for your DFS lineup? Who are you going with, Paul?
Well, again, I'm going back to that Boston Bruins lineup, and because I'm not blowing my brains out at center, I'm going to do it at the wing and take David Pasternak. He's been on a long-time roll, $7,900. Doesn't matter whether he's playing first or second-line minutes because he still gets that power play exposure, and that's a big reason why he's got the 43 shots and 10 points in his last 10 games played, and I expect that role to continue tonight against the Anaheim team that looks overmatched. Kyle Connor's been scoring against everybody, and tonight he gets a favorable matchup when Montreal comes to play against him. $7,300 his price tag. Another guy that's averaging almost 4 shots on goal a game. He's got 11 points in his last 10 starts. Brad Marchand, the straw that stirs the drink in Boston, is back in tow, and that's a good thing for Bruins fans. He comes in at only $7,100. I think he can have a big night here tonight. He's also pouring a lot of shots on goal of late and averaging better than a point per game in his last 10. And then finally Patrick Lioney might be the hottest of all these shooters. He's scoring against everybody and doing it with an economy of shots, only 31 shots to get his last 9 goals over 10 games played, again, costing only $7,000.
All right, AJ, you paid $9K for Nathan McKinnon at center. Who are you going with at wing?
I'll go further down, and I'll go with Wisconsin's own Cole Caulfield. The former Badger is red hot right now. And look, they're going up against the Jets. Montreal struggled this season, but the Jets have not been the defensive stalwarts this year that we're used to. Connor Hellebuyck has been, normal in terms of goaltending for much of the year. as opposed to some of his seasons where he seems superhuman. So I think there are opportunities to still use the Habs despite how bad they've been. And this is one of those. Caulfield has 10 points in his last 8 contests, and I would expect him to keep rolling here. He's just 5,300, so you're not breaking the bank at all.
All right, Pete, where are you going for the winger that you feel like you just need in your lineup?
Well, I definitely want a piece of the Carolina Hurricanes in their matchup against the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings, if you didn't check over the weekend, allowed 10 goals in a game. First time any NHL team has allowed double digits since December 2017. So that's a little alarming. So yeah, Teravainen with the top line exposure to Sebastian Aho is a great pick. And he's got an 8-game point streak with 11 points total in the span and 7 on the power play. So his power play production, he has a great matchup here against a vulnerable penalty kill in the Red Wings, and their goaltending is suspect right now. Even Nedeljkovic doesn't look very good. And then to echo what Paul said about Jake DeBrusk, the price is still about the same as what it was before he had the hat trick yesterday. He's got a 5-game point streak. You got to get DeBrusk in your lineup at the wing position. And I know he's technically in the value category, but he's like ride the hot hand category because whether he's going to stick on the top line with Bergeron and Marchand or he's going to get traded, he's boosting his stock either way right now.
All right, AJ, let's talk blue line. Which defenseman do you need to roster? Cale Makar is the third most expensive at $6,600.
Well, I think tonight's a good opportunity to spend up at those centers. Like, I think there might be an option to get McKinnon and maybe get Draisaitl in there. Maybe not McDavid if you really want a viable lineup. So I do think you need to be cost efficient on the blue line as well. And similarly to the Habs, I think there's spots where you can target the Devils, and going up against the Blue Jackets is a great opportunity. Columbus has been, as we've harped on the show, very spotty defensively. So I'll snag Dougie Hamilton here, 5,800 in this contest, 2 points since returning from injury, but perhaps more importantly, in those 3 games, 12 shots on net. I mean, that's a fantastic floor for a guy who's 5,800, less than 6K. He should continue to put plenty of rubber on net heading into this matchup with Columbus as well.
All right, Pete, think you need to save some money on the blue line here?
Yeah, you could save a little bit compared to AJ's pick. I like Shea Theodore for the Golden Knights. I think this is a right matchup against the Sharks. The Golden Knights have won like 10 in a row against this team, and they're getting Robin Lehner back. So that extra support on the back end will certainly have a ripple effect and allow players like Theodore to be more prioritizing their offense because they're not just completely worried about the back end like the past couple of weeks. Also, Noah Dobson is a nice gem. I know we're all over Colorado, but Dobson leads all NHL defensemen in goals with 9 since December 5th. So under the radar for sure, even though the Islanders are falling out of contention a little bit right now, Dobson is covering a lot of categories in DFS and especially goals, which are scarce at the defenseman position.
Paul, what do we think? Where are you going?
Well, because I saved some money at center, I can spend up on the wing. I told you about those, and I'm spending up on defense too. I'm going to take one of the following 3 guys. Victor Hedman, $6,800 is the price tag for a guy that's making a strong case to get back and win the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman in the league. His team's on fire offensively. He's been right in the center of that production, and I smell a big mismatch against the struggling Ottawa lineup. Then, in a bit of a contrarian play, I'm looking at Brett Burns of San Jose, $6,300 against Las Vegas club there. Over his last 4 games played, he's got 6 points, and Robin Lehner's making his return after an injury, sidelined him for a couple of weeks, and I'm not sure we can expect the top performance from him. I think there's something going on there. So I'm looking for San Jose to actually pull an upset here. And finally, Charlie McAvoy of the Bruins. He's their power play quarterback, and this team is really rolling offensively. And the Anaheim Ducks goaltending is in serious disarray right now.
All right, who's the best DFS value play? AJ, don't think you caught the show yesterday, but I feel like Paul would want you to know he picked Jake DeBrusk as his value play. A nice little hat trick to start the week. So, who's your value play tonight, AJ?
This is why I needed a week off, just to not have to listen to Paul and the gloating here. But look, this is probably way way too obvious of a play here, but Igor Sharangovich for the Devils at 3,800 almost has to be in your lineup. Like, goals in 4 straight games, points in his last 7. He's going up against the Jackets. Like, there's nothing about this that says he won't get some more opportunities. Looks like Elvis Merzlikins is going to get the start after being out for a while. Similar to what Paul said, a goalie returning from injury is not exactly the prime candidate to pitch a shutout here. So I think the Devils are a good team to stack tonight, and you can really get some great value with Sharangovich, who's just been unstoppable of late.
All right, Pete, you mentioned Jake DeBrusk earlier, said he could be riding the hot hand tonight, but who are you going with your value play?
Yeah, DeBrusk is a great one. Sharangovich stacked with Jack Hughes is a total no-brainer right now. I'm really excited about how Jack Hughes has been elevating his game since coming back from COVID. He's got like 4 straight multi-point games. So even at his price, 6,100, that's some good value there for sure. And then, you know, some of these other guys, I do think there's some sneaky value in the Detroit offense. So whether it's Filip Hronek, who had 4 points over the weekend against the Maple Leafs in that 10-7 game, or even if you want to look at like a Lucas Raymond, I mean, $4,200 for arguably the best rookie forward, most consistent rookie forward in the NHL this season. Sign me up for that. Just because Detroit's playing Carolina doesn't mean they can't drop 3 or 4 goals in a loss. So yeah, tap into the Detroit Red Wings. Don't be afraid of that, even with a daunting matchup.
All right, Paul, no pressure to keep the streak going. Who you going with for your value play?
Well, I told AJ, the producers have promised us that they'll highlight strong performances. So that's all they're doing here. It's nothing that I did. I'm just delivering. In any case, one of the 3 guys that I'm about to mention might wind up in the feature tomorrow. Alex Claren is still not getting respect in terms of the DK prices. He's playing top 6 minutes alongside the big boys, scoring regularly, gets the soft matchup tonight against Ottawa, still only costs $4,500. I'm all in there. Nico Hischier on a scoring line role in New Jersey, producing big time as well most recently, still only priced $4,500. The goaltending in Columbus is suspect as well. And then Riley Smith, again, a guy who's been front and center offensively for this club all season long, only $4,200 against San Jose, and we know their goaltending is suspect as well. So the profile for these 3 players is similar, and the price point is cheap. Go grab at least one of them.
All right, hockey dudes, thank you. NFL is coming your way after this quick break. Say hello to DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich here for NFL Spin Move. Okay, what does that mean? It means we're putting a fantasy and sports betting spin on the latest NFL news and happenings, right? So it's March. That means NFL free agency now just 2 weeks away. A lot of big names are on the market, not to mention the quarterback carousel that could take place via trades. So right now, according to overthecap.com, it's the Dolphins, Jags, and Chargers and Bengals with the most cap space, all $40 million or more. So Pierce, is there like a future from one of these teams that you like before free agency? The odds might get shorter here.
Well, if it's March 1st, we might as well just go crazy and take the Jags to win the Super Bowl. But just from a betting perspective, you don't really want to put a safe bet. I mean, if you go with a safe bet, then you need to put a sizable amount of money down. That means you could have that money tied up for the next 8 months. So it's wiser just to take a wild shot, put a little bit down on a team that's, doesn't have the greatest odds. But here's how the Jags could do it. Like you mentioned, they've got money. So they can go buy a receiver and they can buy an offensive lineman. They also have 12 picks, 4 in the first 3 rounds. They can go get another offensive lineman, maybe beef up the defense a little bit. The defense wasn't really the problem. The defense kept them in games. They don't have to work too much on that side. They just got to improve the offensive line and get a wide receiver. Trevor Lawrence is going to get better. They've got a better coach. I know it's extreme to think that they can win the Super Bowl, but in the AFC South, it's not that hard for them to add a couple components with the money they have and the picks to get them in contention. They sneak into the playoffs. Anything can happen.
Pierce would choose this on the day that Emerson isn't here. He's just going to be beside himself when he hears that. Jeff, you want to give us as hot a take as that?
I mean, Emerson literally probably just punched his own TV right now. He's so excited. No, I do kind of like it, though. I mean, Pierce makes a good point. I mean, this is the time of the year where, if you're getting big odds, like any of these teams with huge odds, they could see their numbers get chopped in half. Let's say the Jags get a good graded draft. Everyone likes it. And then they go sign Chris Godwin and a couple players. But they're like, oh, the Titans aren't that good. All of a sudden, the Jags odds go from plus 750 to like plus 400 to win the division. And I mean, I'm not going to get on the Bengals. The Bengals are still coming off the Super Bowl win. Their odds are inflated. The Dolphins, they can spend all the money they want. They're still in the same conference or the same division, as the Buffalo Bills. So I don't really see anything changing for the Dolphins. I don't care how much money they spend. I like the head coaching move with Doug Peterson, and I think there's a little bit of value with the Jags there at plus 750 to win that division. But my favorite target here is the Chargers. This is a team that what was their biggest weakness last year? All it was stopping the run. Now, the one issue here, has been, on the free agent market that there's not that many run stuffers available. So, they could go out and get a guy like Calais Campbell for 1 year, DJ Jones. That'll still leave the money to get like a Chris Godwin in free agency, which they should absolutely do because they're going to have to be putting up and staying on pace with the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a long way of me saying I like the Chargers at plus 1,200 to win the division right now.
We're actually going to talk about Chris Godwin right now. So another team with potentially $30 million in cap space, the Broncos, they're a team to keep an eye on. So yesterday, their GM said that their wide receivers are loaded with talent, but they have to be better, and they know that. So Jeff, even with Jerry Judy and Courtland Sutton, could the Broncos be a destination for top free agents, Chris Godwin, maybe Devontae Adams?
I mean, they could, and I mean, I like Courtland Sutton as a player, but I mean, like, this really hasn't worked out. I mean, he's either been injured or he's just been saddled. He just hasn't been able to get over the hump with poor quarterbacks. I don't know if it's a Courtland Sutton thing or if it's just, the Broncos' offensive schemes has been so bad. Jerry Judy is a player who I thought was just, probably getting a little bit too much heat coming out of college. He hasn't really put it together either. So seeing them go out and spend money on like a Godwin to just try and, get some juice on their offense that has just been absolutely stale and dragging this team down the last couple of years. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that it's actually a very likely scenario because whoever they go after as a free agent, and I mean, now they've been linked to Russell Wilson as well, they have to make it an appealing prospect to come there. And I mean, how much more appealing can you make it than by signing perhaps the top free agent, in Chris Godwin? I don't think Devontae Adams is going anywhere. We can talk about it now, but I mean, the Packers will just franchise him, or he'll just come back once Aaron Rodgers signs. So I think Godwin is a very likely target, and I think you'll see his name linked to numerous teams. The Bucs don't have a ton of space. So, yeah, it's definitely potential that the Broncos do that. They obviously need to address the quarterback position first, but how do you attract a good quarterback? It's by signing someone like Chris Godwin.
Pierce, do you agree?
I do. I'm on the same page. If Judy and Sutton can stay healthy and live up to their potential, then they don't need a wide receiver, but that's a big if. We haven't seen Judy and Sutton stay healthy. The bigger question is, they need a quarterback. That's who they need to pick up. There aren't really any in free agency, so maybe you consider moving Judy or Sutton and trading him. I think Green Bay, like Jeff said, should keep everything together. They should franchise tag Devontae Adams, but where they stand right now, they can't even afford to franchise tag Devontae Adams. So Green Bay may be forced to make some moves. Maybe they trade Aaron Rodgers over for Jerry Judy. That way Jordan Love has a receiver that he can pass to. I mean, it's not the worst thing that could happen. But even if the Broncos do get Aaron Rodgers or get Russell Wilson, the problem isn't the receiving, and it may not necessarily be their quarterback play. Teddy Bridgewater had a 29% pressure rate. That was the third worst in the league. It doesn't matter who you bring in at quarterback. If you're not blocking for him, he's not going to do anything. And the receivers aren't going to be able to do anything. And you might not even need a quarterback. If you use that money in that cap space to fix their offensive line, then an average quarterback can probably work with Sutton and Judy in this tandem of running backs. Or if you get another quarterback as well, it's going to be really good. But it's not receiver where they should be going. Offensive line is where the Broncos need help.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks, March is also the time for contract extension talks through the media. The Cardinals want Kyler Murray to be their franchise quarterback. Kyler Murray wants to be the Cardinals' franchise quarterback, according to his agent, who went public with a statement that was very long and basically said the Cardinals need to pay the man. So, Pierce, the question becomes how the Cardinals view him amongst the rest of the league's top quarterbacks, like assuming that they work out a deal here and that Murray doesn't hold out for a new contract. How do you feel about his odds at plus 1,800 to win MVP?
No, can't do it.
Okay.
You can't stay healthy. You've got to stay healthy if you are going to win this award. You've got to play the full season, except if you may miss a game for COVID. But if you miss a game for injury, you just don't win MVP. And he even changed his style and still was unable to play the full season. Let's say that for whatever reason, everyone doesn't care that he misses a game this year, or maybe he plays the full season. He changed his approach. He's much more conservative. He's not padding the stats like we would expect. And it's hard to pad the stats in that division. And then another issue is his weapons aren't that great. He has Hopkins, but Hopkins doesn't stay healthy. And then everybody else around him is just pretty good. He's got, like I mentioned, he's not running like crazy. They're not throwing like crazy. I don't see him winning this award. I also don't see him staying healthy.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same story. I mean, if Kyler he's shown marginal improvement as a passer. If you look deeper into the stats, he almost pushed for 70% completion rate. You know, his touchdown rate went up a tiny bit. The interception rate in his third year went up a tiny bit. But we're not talking elite numbers. Like when you think of Kyler Murray as a passer, what does he really do that's like better than anyone else? Nothing. I mean, he's not more efficient than Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have a better deep ball than Mahomes or Josh Allen. And these are all names he's going to have to beat. These are all names that Kyler Murray will be up against for the MVP trophy. So you might be looking at him, he's double the odds of Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has a way better chance of winning this award. And Kyler Murray, as Pierce alluded to, the rushing stats can only carry him so far because the Cardinals don't commit to him as a pure rushing quarterback. They don't do the Baltimore Ravens thing where they say, okay, yeah, we're rushing Lamar 14 times, try and stop us. As soon as Kyler gets like a little tingle in his hamstring or something, they say, pull it back. We're going to be conservative now. I also don't really like this offensive scheme for anything for like an MVP for the quarterback. I think it actually limits them how much Cliff Kingsbury runs. So no, completely out on Kyler MVP.
All right, both of you in agreement on that one. Well, on Sunday, Tampa Bay lost another Pro Bowler to retirement, this time guard Ali Marpet. So without a quarterback, a new hole in the O-line, potentially without Chris Godwin, the Bucs' odds to win this out still sit at plus 130. So is it time to start fading the Bucs here, Jeff? By the way, Ryan Jensen and Alex Kappa are both set to be free agents too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised that the odds are still sitting like this. I mean, plus 130. There's a lot that can move in this division. I mean, look, who knows? Like Matt Ryan could retire or something, you know, and Atlanta could end up trading for Russell Wilson. I mean, I don't know how you could potentially bet the Buccaneers right now with them up against the cap, having no quarterback. I know the Saints are in the exact same situation. I realize that. But you look at both these teams, there's nothing stopping the Saints from getting the marquee quarterback over the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs right now is a team that's just hemorrhaging players that's potentially going to be losing their top end free agent. I mean, at least the Saints, you know, they've gone through, like they've lost Champagne. Everyone knows what's happening there. So I don't know. I mean, this is a pretty hard division to figure. I don't really know if I want to make a case for like Carolina just because of some of their personnel decisions. But I think New Orleans at plus 260 kind of has to be the better bet right now than Tampa Bay. And at the very least, you can certainly say, and I feel comfortable saying, there's no way I'm touching the Bucs right now. I think that number you'll see get bigger as free agency goes on.
All right, Pierce, what's your take on this one?
You can't bet it at that number. But I don't want to rule out Tampa and Bruce Arians. They still have a pretty solid defense. And I also don't want to overreact to the offensive line. Cincinnati didn't have an offensive line, and they went to the Super Bowl. The Rams, with Andrew Whitworth, who is so old that his rookie season they were wearing leather helmets. and they didn't seem to have a problem winning games. So I don't want to overreact to the offensive line. The bigger issue is they don't have a quarterback. It looks like they're going to lose some of their skill position players. Fournette didn't look that great last season. Ronald Jones isn't that great, couldn't stay healthy, so the running game wasn't really there. They've just got too many holes to fill at this moment. Maybe through free agency and draft, we'll have a better idea of what they can do. But without a quarterback, I'm not going to go anywhere near this team right now.
Still the best odds in the NFC South. All right, thanks, dudes. On to basketball next. Welcome back to The Sweat. Our NBA panel is here. DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne, RotoWire's Nick Whalen, and Four Seasons podcast Ball is Life, Ryan Mogjosh here. Guys, NBA building blocks time. We are breaking down tonight's 6-game NBA slate. So we got to find someone to build around at guard. Gary, and who you going with?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards D'Angelo Russell tonight. And Russell is one of those guys who can be just so frustratingly inconsistent. And part of that really isn't his fault. It's just that the Timberwolves game plan of let's go incredibly high up-tempo offense and have kind of a shaky defense, that leads to some lopsided game scripts. So sometimes D'Angelo Russell doesn't get to play as many minutes as he normally would because they're up or down 25 points entering the fourth quarter. But I think tonight's game against Golden State is almost like the optimum spot to use someone on the Timberwolves, because not only is this the highest total game on the DraftKings Sportsbook, it's also got the lowest spread on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I think this game is going to stay relatively close. In the last 8 times, D'Angelo Russell's played at least 33 minutes in a game, which is not even like a crazy number of minutes for the starting point guard to play. He's averaging about 44 DraftKings points per game. So if this one stays close, which I'm hoping it will, I think D'Angelo Russell is going to hit his ceiling tonight.
All right, D'Angelo Russell is where you're going to be going. How about you, Nick? Who do you want to build around at guard?
Yeah, Russell's one of the guys on my list. I think he's at a really good price tonight at 7,600 for a guy who has 37, 21, and 25 points over his last 3 games. And it looked like against Cleveland last night, he was going to be on track for more. Got off to a fast start and kind of slowed down when Minnesota let the Cavs back into that game. But if you do want to pay up a little bit, I do like Trae Young tonight against Boston. Atlanta's been very much up and down, but regardless of whether they're winning by 20 or losing by 20, Trae Young's numbers have remained really, really steady this season. So I think 10,000, pretty solid value for Trae Young tonight. Then if you want to pay down a bit, I don't mind going with Cade Cunningham at 75. Really good matchup against a Washington Wizards defense, roster, backcourt, everything that is extremely vulnerable since the trade deadline. Still no Kristaps Porzingis. This is a game that should be really competitive, a game that I would expect the Detroit Pistons to win. Not often you can say that. And as long as Cade Cunningham is playing north of 30, he does enough, in terms of diverse stats that the fantasy line is always going to be pretty good.
All right. Ryan, take us home. Who are you building around at guard?
I might build around Malachi Flynn again. Last night went off. He was a league minimum, $3K. Tonight he only goes up in cost by $100, so he's $3,100. He played 34 minutes last night because Fred VanVleet was out. He had 36 DraftKings points. So keep an eye on Fred VanVleet tonight. He's questionable with a knee, but if FVV is out again, Malachi Flynn to the moon.
All right, let's talk forwards. Nick, who do you like?
Well, I'm going to stay in that Toronto game, and I'm going to assume that Fred VanVleet is not playing. That situation has been really strange, where he basically admitted, like, yeah, my knee doesn't feel great, and then tried playing through it, and then we don't see him play last night. Of course, they're on the second half of a back-to-back, and, other than Malachi Flynn, the guy who really benefited last night at least was Scottie Barnes. He played 34 minutes, 28 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 steals, and 1 block. So obviously the defensive stats, doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of his final fantasy output. You can't necessarily count on 5 steals again, but he is a guy that not only when Fred VanVleet is out, but OG Anunoby also going to miss time with a broken finger. Scottie Barnes has been the #1 beneficiary all season when either of those guys miss time. He can handle the ball better than virtually everybody else. And, with the exception of last night, Nick Nurse has been really hesitant to trust guys like Delano Banton and Malachi Flynn this season, and instead has kind of turned over a lot of that responsibility to Scottie Barnes. So getting him at 6,000, I think, is a really big time bargain. I think I would stay away from Pascal Ciaco. He's just been in a terrible slump these last few games. I think I'm going to stay away from LeBron at forward as well. I think we're like 2 to 3 more embarrassing losses away from LeBron just shutting this thing down. He was doing more like grabbing at his knee than I've ever seen in that last game against the Pelicans. I just don't trust that situation right now.
Fun fact from producer Slate, Scottie Barnes over 8.5 assists and rebounds was a top 5 money-making prop on DK last night. So just something fun to note. Ryan, which forward should you build around?
I love the Scottie Barnes pick. I had that, but I also have Kyle Kuzma here if you're willing to pay up for him. $9,200 versus Detroit tonight, and Detroit stinks. This whole Wizards trade with Porzingis is still out, so Kuzma literally does everything for them. The last 2 games after All-Star break, 63 and 63 DraftKings points. He's played 46 minutes in the first and then 39 minutes in the second, so he's out there all the time, does everything for the Wizards, and he's on a heater.
All right, Gary, where are you going?
So I'm going to zag on the Raptors. I think that they're going to be a place where, as we've already seen tonight, people are going to want to use Malachi Flynn. I think that's very reasonable. He's so cheap, and he's probably going to play 35 minutes again. It's hard to say I don't like Scottie Barnes. I mean, he's in that mid-tier, only 6K. But I think it was telling that post-game Nick Nurse was asked, like, wow, what a game by Scottie Barnes. What'd you think of it? He said, we didn't run a single play for Scottie Barnes. He had 8 of his 12 made field goals on offensive rebound putbacks. I just, between that and the steals and the blocks, I just don't know how sustainable that sort of game is night to night. I think this is the night you do go back to Pascal Ciaco. I think the salary has dropped so far. I mean, this was someone who was up above $10,000 on a couple slates prior to the All-Star break. And the reasoning for that was he had a 9-game stretch from January 29th to February 12th, where he was averaging 53 DraftKings points per game. He is the point guard when Fred VanVleet is not playing. And, he's shooting 25% from the field since the All-Star break. Not great. But he's also been dealing with an illness in that span of time. I just think at a certain point, the shots have to start falling for Siakam. He's got such a high ceiling, especially when VanVleet isn't playing, especially going up against a Nets team that's allowing over 120 points per 100 possessions across their last 5 games. I just think you bank on the upside here. You realize that people are going to be gravitating so heavily towards Scottie Barnes that you're going to get Siakam's ceiling at a very low ownership number tonight.
All right, Gary, and pivoting away from the chalk. Best center to play tonight, Ryan.
I kind of like Kelly Olynyk. $4,900 looked very healthy last game for the first time all year long. 40.5 DraftKings points and a game winner buzzer beater. I think he's going to ride that, and I like his matchup tonight. I think both these teams are just bad teams, high fantasy rate kind of scoring teams. So I think you see less Isaiah Stewart time and more Kelly Olynyk time in this window where he's hot.
All right, some serious value there at the center position. Kelly Olynyk, $4,900. Garion, which center are you going to build around?
So I had to zag a little bit the last question because I am eating the chalk at center. I think you just have to go with Zubac. I mean, this is someone who scored over 50 DraftKings points when he played Houston on Sunday. And it's not like this is an isolated incident either. I mean, Zubac has been pretty good since Serge Ibaka was traded to the Bucks. It's really sort of simplified the Clippers center rotation He scored at least 29 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's over 38 DraftKings points 3 of his last 6 games. And Houston has just been a dumpster fire when it comes to virtually defending every position, but specifically centers. They've given up the most DraftKings points per game this season to opposing big men. So I'm going to go back with Zubac. I think he's going to be super, super popular, but I'm willing to eat that chalk.
Yeah, he's logged double-digit scoring totals in 3 of his past 4 games, so he is hot right now. Nick, where are you going here?
Yeah, I'm going to mainline that chalk as well. Zubac at 6,100 is the guy who really stands out to me. It's, partially, like Gary had said, he's playing really well, partially great matchup against a super weak Houston front court. You never really know what you're getting from Christian Wood night to night. And beyond that, not a lot of resistance in terms of guys who can match up with Zubac. So not a whole lot to say there. I mean, Isaiah Stewart in Detroit, kind of the counterpart to Kelly Olynyk. He's at 5,000. Not super exciting. This is a guy that we had high hopes for coming into the year. It's just kind of been a meh second NBA season for him, but he's now all the way down at $5,000. At this point, he's still giving you like 20 to 30 DraftKings points on most nights, like a relatively high floor, low ceiling type of pick if you just need to round out your fantasy roster tonight. I just don't love the options at center. I don't like Towns against Golden State tonight. I was going to be all over Andre Drummond in this rematch against Toronto, but sounds like he might not play. He tweaked his knee last night. Yeah, it's going to be slim pickings, and I think Garian's on the right track where a lot of people are going to be gravitating towards Zubac.
All right, can you build your lineup around a value play tonight? Garian, what do we think?
Yeah, again, I think Malachi Flynn, popular, but justifiably so at 3,100. If VanVleet doesn't play, he's just going to be playing. I mean, he played 34 minutes in a 35-point blowout. If this is somehow a close game tonight, he might play 38 or 40. We know how Nick Nurse kind of runs things there. Even like someone like Precious Achiuwa, who, it's weird when you think about like who replaces who in the Raptors rotations, but OG Anunoby missing does affect someone like Achiuwa, who has also just really been outplaying Kem Birch lately. Over 20 points in each of his last 2 games. He's looked good really since like the Rising Stars game. But I think someone who might go a little under the radar just because it's not like he's making the first spot start tonight. This will be the second straight spot start for Moses Moody for Klay Thompson. And he really underwhelmed on Sunday in this exact same spot, scoring just 11.75 DraftKings points. But Dallas is a much different opponent than Minnesota. Again, Minnesota is like the ideal DFS opponent in terms of just middling to low end defense, high tempo. I think someone like Moody, who is the bare minimum tonight, if he sees 25 minutes against Minnesota, I'm hard pressed to imagine a scenario where he doesn't bring back at least like 6x, 7x value.
All right, Nick, when you're looking at a value play you could possibly build around, who comes to mind?
Yeah, I'll throw out a few names quickly. Onyeka Okongwu is somebody I always find myself coming back to. Like the Hawks are still starting Clint Capella. It feels like they like Okongwu more. But even on nights when he doesn't play 20-plus minutes, which is kind of like every other at this point, he still has the potential to give you 20, 25 DraftKings points just because he does so much when he's out there, even if he's playing like 15 minutes. So Okongwu at 4,000, I always like, especially if you need a fit at center on a night like this. A couple names in Dallas, Dorian Finney-Smith, 4,900, a guy who pretty much plays like 35 to 37 minutes every night. Doesn't do a ton. You're kind of relying on corner threes and rebounds, but the minutes are always there. Reggie Bullock, 4,500, another three-point reliant guy, but the minutes have been there for him since Tim Hardaway went down. And then Jordan Poole at 5,200, I think is a high-risk, high-reward option. It sounds like he kind of semi-landed in the doghouse in the last game, played under 20 minutes, even with Klay Thompson out, but no Klay again for the Warriors. I think there's a chance here that we see extended Jordan Poole minutes, and he's at 5,200.
Well, Ryan, you already gave us Kelly Olynyk at 4,900, but anybody else you can give us here?
I like those calls by the Mavs by Nick because, last game they went on like a, 26-1 run against the Warriors to come back and win, and they went like ultra small. They played his literally initials as DFS. So It's a great start. Dorian Finney-Smith. I love that. And Bullock played like plus 30 minutes. I'm going with Precious Achiuwa, like Garian mentioned, because, Kem Birch gets the starts, and it always makes me a little iffy. But then Kem Birch plays 10 minutes and then 13 minutes a game. And Precious plays in crunch time, plays the majority of the minutes at center anyway. And OG being out is huge for that too. Last 2 starts for Precious, 37 and 36 DraftKings points. So I'm all over Precious.
All right, good stuff, guys. Appreciate the time as always. One more block to go here on the Sweat. We're sticking with basketball, but we're looking at college. It's March 1st, so you know what that means. College basketball time, baby. Say hello to our college basketball panel. DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow and DK Nation's college sports editor Colin Sherwin. Guys, thank you for being here. Need your best bets on the DK Sportsbook from tonight's slate of college basketball games. So, huge matchup in the Big East. Providence at Villanova. Nova, the 9-point favorite at home. Colin, what's a bet in this one that you like?
To stay away or only bet $1. So these two teams are pretty equally matched, but there's a great stat about Providence that I think just really sort of embodies their season. Since 2000, Ken Pom has put together a luck stat. Who are the luckiest teams in college basketball? Over about 7,000 teams, Providence is the second luckiest team of this millennium, behind randomly the 2008 Wagner Seahawks. Just a lot of luck, to only have 3 losses at this point. They've really had to dance through the raindrops, and they still lost at home to Villanova. 9.5 seems right to me. I'm going to stay away here, but I will be fading Providence hard in the NCAA tournament for sure. This is just a Villanova team that just tends to keep it close and then just closes people out with the ability to get baskets late and get free throws late. They shoot free throws better than anybody in the country, and that's how they beat teams. So the number seems right about right. I'm just staying away here.
Julian, 93% of the bets are on the Nova money line. Yeah, I know.
Good take, Julian.
I can tell you agree, Jules. Jules is having some technical difficulties, so we're gonna fade him. Colin, back to you. Duke, the only top 7 ranked team to escape last Saturday with a win. How wild was that? 1-6 losing. Are they in danger of a road upset tonight in Pittsburgh?
So if you're a conspiracy theorist, you could say that maybe in his last season, Mike Krzyzewski actually wants to lose this game to keep his former player, Jeff Capel, employed. But otherwise, I don't see how Duke loses this game. Even if it gets a little wonky late, Paolo Banchero is the best player in the country. He's one of the best closeout players in the country. And he just matches up really well against this Pitt team. It's 14.5 for a reason. If you're not following college basketball like some of us do all year round, I regret to inform you today, the first day of March Madness, that Duke is good. They're very good. That's unfortunate for all of us. It's going to make Coach K's last run here a little bit less fun. But unfortunately, yeah, they're really good, and they should be able to close out here, no problem. Jeff Capel's probably not looking for real estate right now in Pittsburgh, for sure. So we'll see what happens after the season. But, yeah, this one's over.
All right, TCU had a nice upset of Texas Tech last weekend. Or apparently Julian's back. Julian, do we have you? We can't hear you. Maybe you could unmute yourself? No. Well,
am I here?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Tough day at the office over here.
Yeah, really tough day. Want to talk to us about Duke? What do we think?
We're on Duke now?
Yeah.
Duke isn't losing. Pittsburgh stinks. Yeah. I don't have many thoughts on Duke. I don't know. I wouldn't lay the points with them because they have the look-ahead spot. Obviously, Coach K's final game, hosting Carolina on Saturday. So no, Pitt can't take down Duke, but I am not laying the points with Duke. More entertained by the one that I missed. I'll lay the points. Villanova first half. Providence, first ever regular season Big East title. Hangover spot on the road at Nova. Just your casual top 10 team being a double-digit dog. Give me Nova first half in that one.
Wow, that is hot. Jules,
I'm playing catch up.
Yeah, we love it. TCU had a nice upset of Texas Tech last weekend. Do you think they can pull off another one against Kansas, or will the Jayhawks bounce back from their loss to Baylor? So the game total for this one, 144.5. Kansas, 5.5-point favorites. Jules, what do we think?
No, TCU cannot pull off the home upset here. This is a perfect spot to buy on Kansas. You got a team coming off a big loss, looking for a win in terms of seeding for the NCAA tournament, and you have TCU coming off a big win, so you can sell on them. And this one's already moved from 5.5 to 6.5. So this is getting right to the limit where I would maybe bet it. More so, Kansas is just the perfect piece to use in a 2-team money line parlay on Tuesday night.
Colin, 90% of the bets are on Kansas to cover here.
So Jillian, yesterday, Jesse, we had a little joke about the best SID in America, Steve Schoen at TCU. So I texted Steve this morning. He sent me these two notes that I think are really relevant here. TCU is looking for their first ever back-to-back top 25 win. They've never done that in program history. They've played basketball for about 100 years. But I think the stat that really goes here is that Kansas is 107-15 following a loss under Bill Self. And since 2012 and 2013, they are 54-6 after a loss. So yeah, Kansas does look like the play here, especially on trends. Bounce back spot, it looks pretty good. I do think this TCU team does have enough to make a little bit of noise in the Big 12 tournament, depending on the draw. I think they are a team that can still get their way into the tournament, and they're definitely playing better basketball now. This is just a really tough spot to try and find a win.
All right, Colin, top two teams in the Big Ten squaring off tonight. What's a bet in the Purdue-Wisconsin game that you like? Purdue is the road favorite by 2.5 points. Game total sits at 144. And Purdue, 8th ranked, looking to avenge one of their few losses of the season visiting Wisconsin. Do we see a revenge narrative here?
Absolutely. And actually, I had a 3.5, and I still like Purdue, so I really like it at 2.5. I think Purdue is one of the highest variance teams in college basketball. Most efficient offense by Ken Pom. But they really shoot a lot of threes, and they do some things well on that side, but tends to be very hit or miss. This is a game where they're going to hit, though, coming off a loss. This is when they tend to focus and lock in a little bit better. Matt Painter's got a really fun, flowing, freewheeling kind of group, but when they need to lay it down, they lay it down. So this is a really good spot for Purdue. I think this is much more than a one-possession game, and I think Purdue runs away.
Jules, what do you think?
Absolutely. Purdue, I'll play them on the first half line. As well, just like I did with Villanova. I think they come out strong off the loss. Like Colin said, everything sets up Purdue here. They're the more talented team. They're coming off a loss that they need to bounce back from on Saturday. They have the revenge factor for the earlier loss to Wisconsin. Johnny Davis, one of the contenders for National Player of the Year. I don't think he's going to get it, but he scored 37 points in that first game. Very good player, but I don't think Purdue's going to let that happen again. So everything should come up Purdue here. This is a huge game, too, in terms of winning the Big Ten regular season. I don't think Purdue's going to let that slip away in this spot. Love the spot for Purdue.
All right, skipping ahead to slate-approved pick. What is your favorite bet on the board tonight, Jules?
Oh, man, we are going to one that is not even close to a ranked matchup. IUPUI, the worst team in college basketball. They've been going down and down more players all season. They sent out a tweet from the basketball program looking for open tryouts on campus. Want to make the team? Come on down to the gym and try out. They had 6 guys playing for them. One of those guys got hurt. They're down to 5 guys, and some of those guys are banged up. They are playing at Oakland in their conference tournament tonight. Oakland, a pretty solid team. I don't even know what it's at right now. I put it on Twitter earlier. We're laying 23.5 with Oakland. We're taking IUPUI team total under 51.5. IUPUI is going to struggle to get anywhere near 50 points in this game. It's going to be bad.
All right, Colin, 30 seconds. Favorite bet on the board tonight?
I love that the team from Indiana is like, my team's on the court. Shout out Hoosiers. So I got 2 tonight. Virginia Tech, minus, if it gets under 10, Louisville's done. They've checked out. They checked out on their coach. They've checked out on themselves. If you can find that at 10 or less, I love it. And also Bucknell on the road against the Lafayette team they just beat 2 weeks ago. Bucknell catching 6 on the road. Bucknell can play a little. They're playing much better. They're trending upward right now. For a team that's only won 8 games this year, they're actually not playing so badly. So I'm going to take the Bison on the road with 6 points. And I also don't hate the over in the USC game. USC is going to get some calls at home. They don't tend to get on the road. They don't shoot enough free throws. That's USC's problem as a team. They will shoot more free throws tonight. That will get you over 148.5 total.
All right, good stuff, guys. That is the show. Madden starts at noon. The slate is at 5, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11.